All right. So I wanted to ask you about artificial sweeteners. And I suppose this one comes from lots of ladies that I talk to identify as sweet, having a sweet tooth, having a really sweet tooth. And over the weeks, they may have made some positive changes to their breakfast, their lunches, their dinners, their snacks, but they're still craving sweet foods, either in the afternoons, when they're stressed, when they're tired, or in the evenings, because it's possibly been a part of their habits that, at 3 o'clock, they've always reached for something sweet. At 9 o'clock at night, they've always reached for something sweet. So they're still craving that. They're still going to do that. They're still wanting to do that. And generally, foods that are pretty sweet are high in calories and or because of the sugars or the fats. So I wanted to explore artificial sweeteners and having products that are, have artificial sweeteners and therefore low in calories. Is that better, worse, same? Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's really as humans, we crave sweet. It starts right from when we are infants, and breast milk is sweet. We've always had this affinity for sweet. So anyone who tells you that you need to kind of detox from needing sweet foods or craving sweet, it's rubbish. It's human nature. Having said that, many of us do have too much of the sweet stuff. So we're having too much added sugar. We don't need to worry ourselves about having too much sugar from food in its natural form, like fruit or dried fruit or the sugar that's in milk and yogurt. It's totally fine. It's the added sugars that are adding up and creeping in. And I think a lot of us are not quite aware of just how much we may be having. And you know what, full disclaimer, this is myself included. I often think, I've done really well this week. And then I think, hang on a minute, actually, how much added sugar did I really have? So I think most of us are aware that we probably need to be having less added sugars in our diet for a whole host of reasons, not just the energy intake, but it has been associated with, higher risk of chronic disease. I don't think we need too much reminding of that. And so there's a lot of products now on the market that have either artificial sweeteners, which are the chemical sweeteners, and we've also got some newer natural sweeteners like stevia, ones from monk fruit and from various different natural plant sources that are just extracted. And how they work is that they end up being hundreds or thousands times sweeter than traditional sources like cane sugar. So they only need to add in a minuscule amount into the food and it tastes super sweet.
Yes.
So that's how it works. At the moment, we don't have any evidence that consuming these, whether that's the artificial or the more natural alternatives, cause any health effects. And it looks like in the short term, there's benefit to making swaps, so direct swaps. So let's say if you're switching from drinking a litre of Coke a day to switching to drinking a litre of Diet Coke, you are going to be doing yourself some favors.
Huge favors.
But that example helps to illustrate the fact that it's still not a health food, and that can be where the trap comes in, is that we probably need to still continue to work on portion sizes. So how much of this are we having? So having a litre of Diet Coke a day is not going to be great for your teeth, and also it's not going to be helping you in managing, your kind of sweet cravings and your whatever other needs need to be addressed by how you're relying on the Coke in that way. So we need to consider that as well. But it looks like definitely in the short term and probably in the long term, there isn't too many health, or there isn't any health effects that we need to be worried about. Some of the sugar alcohols, which are types of the artificial sweeteners, can have a laxative effect if you have too much of them, and some people tend to be more sensitive than others. So if you're someone who has a bit of a funny tummy, or you maybe have IBS, then you're going to be careful, and you're probably well aware of which ones you need to avoid. So you do need to be careful with the dose from that effect. You don't want to be suffering from something like that in the middle of the night. But otherwise, short term, making some switches like to diet soft drinks or diet jelly what else is there? Diet lollies, any of
Yeah.
those things can be better. What you do need to keep in mind is sometimes we might find some healthier marketed foods that have had a sugar replacement put in don't actually have any less energy because they may still be high fat. Maybe they've used coconut oil in there, which really boosts that energy intake up. So I'm thinking in particular of some of kind of the raw food treats you might buy that say they've got no added sugars in. Whereas if you just compared that straight up with a cupcake for the energy content, a cupcake versus one of those raw food treats, you'll find that the energy and the saturated fat are probably similar.
Yeah.
So while you're not actually, you're saving yourself the added sugar, which is great, are you actually benefiting much? Probably not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, interesting to know. It's something that I didn't know. When Riker was born, they used sugar as pain relief. They squirt that when he was like 2 days old and in PCH. He didn't need like pain relief. They just gave him a little squirt of sugar.
Delicious.
Yeah. he was loving it. But I think you're right. Like what you started, like I agree what you started by saying. There's a lot of almost like we berate ourselves that we have this craving, or that we associate with being a sweet tooth, like it's a bad thing. But again, you're going against years of evolution, like our literal makeup. You can't fight. Yeah, you can't fight that, but you can work towards making better choices, more informed choices. Get curious about what you're eating, compare labels, have a focus on what you can control, maybe your portion sizes, or other areas of your diet, like that, how it can impact there. But there are some great low calorie, artificially sweetened products that can become a good part of the diet as well. Yeah.
And I would recommend having them with something else as well. So say if it's, at nighttime and you're having your, I don't know, like one of those 0 sugar hot chocolates, make it with skim milk. Please don't make it with water. Make it with skim milk so that you're getting some protein and some nutrients with it, or, with a handful, if you're having your diet jelly, can you have it with something else? With it, or to make it a little more substantial and getting some more nutrients.
Those same guidelines for snacking apply. Like if you're going to have the sweet, but have it with something else, because we're building those other habits around it. That's the key. And
if you are having, it can be really helpful if you're having these foods regularly. If you really are just having this stuff sometimes once in a blue moon, once a week, it's not going to make much of a difference to your energy intake or your waistline if that's what you're watching. But if you are having these foods, every day or a couple of times a week, then making some small changes like that can make a big difference. Yeah,
for sure. Awesome. Good one.